The biggest enemy for most dancers is their own anxiety. I know so many great dancers who are able to execute a beautiful dance in class or in their own living room, but then when it comes to getting on stage and getting in front of an audience, they just start to fall apart. They get shaky legs, their balance is off, they can't remember their choreography, and they just look really scared and tight. And so managing stage fright and managing nerves is one of the most valuable lessons that you can learn as a performer. When you're nervous, your audience is going to pick up on that and they're going to feel nervous. And you don't want your audience sitting there being afraid for you. You want your audience to be able to relax and enjoy the performance. And the best way to get them to do that is for you yourself to relax and enjoy the performance. Another benefit to being calm on stage is that you're able to sort of problem solve and manage any little crises as they come up. If you're already panicked and your veil gets caught on your costume or something, you're going to start sort of falling apart. And it's really important to be able to draw on those relaxation skills whenever you need to, so that in the face of a crisis, you can sort of breathe through it and manage it in a way that has flow and calmness. So I'm going to show you a couple of video clips before we talk more about this topic. And these video clips are of dance performances that did not go according to plan. First we'll see a clip of Adriana, and then we'll see a clip of me.
I put the goblets down to set. The second that I stood on them, there was this enormous cracking in the back, and the girls in the back said that it sounded like Antarctic ice breaking off into the ocean, and it was so loud that Zari thought that something had happened because it was like shattering like ice.
The thing that surprises me is that when you're there on the goblets and they're crumbling beneath you, and you could end up on your ass at any minute, and it's a live show and a DVD shoot, and you look so happy. How do you do that?
Oh my gosh. You know, I just thought I thought the whole situation was truly hilarious. And when you really look, and that's choice. That's not like, oh, my personality. That is straight up like, okay, I can either be bitter and mad and angry, and then if I'm feeling those things, that is what is gonna come across the audience. You can't think or feel a sentiment without having it be completely transparent to the audience. And so I'm like, you know, that's scenario one. Scenario two is I can either look at the absolute psychotic humor in this and make use of it as material. So I thought it was like the funniest thing ever. And I've been working on that aspect of my personality for a very long time. If you could have seen the front row too, I think the front row heard the glass cracking and looking at their faces, and I'm like, yeah, I know, this is really hilarious. And like, I would think I was getting more enjoyment off of watching them than they were getting off of me.
And you'd never know that you were just seconds away from total and complete disaster.
I know. But that fine line, I feel like happens all the time. If you're really embracing yourself being a performer and being an entertainer, not just, oh, I'm a belly dancer, and because I'm a belly dancer, I do X, Y, and Z. If you're like, I'm an entertainer, and entertainers they're forced to compensate, and they're forced to be flexible and to do stuff like this all the time. Managing your feelings on stage is definitely a skill set that I think that, you know, you have to learn sooner than later. And I think that, and it's a skill, emphasizing that it's not like, oh, you're born with it or you're not. It's like a skill that you have to work on in every sense. Your emotions, from the second that you walk on the stage, need to be in check. Your attitude, your body language, your posture, every single thing, your breath has to be in check. Otherwise, it will consume you and take over your show. I really feel like stage presence is you enjoying yourself. And if you're not enjoying yourself, the audience will not enjoy you. So really putting out there 200% of your energy, I feel like, is non-negotiable. Like when you're on stage, if you're not putting out 200% of your energy, you are wasting the audience's attention. So that's what I really think about. You know, if you're not fully living in that moment, and that sounds really ethereal, but really when you're living in the moment, you are, you know, you are feeling the ground, you are breathing the air, you are looking at your audience. And there's other things about, like, you know, what stage you have. If you can't see the audience, you know, what do you do? That's a whole other bag of tricks. Like you have to crank up your enjoyment like 1,000 times. You know, you can definitely, so to say, like, you know, milk the audience for their enjoyment a little bit more when you can actually make eye contact. And I think belly dance was meant to be on a stage where there was contact. It's not just a spectator sport. It's actually meant to be exchange of energy. So it's like, you know, how do you look good when you can't necessarily see, you know, your audiences? You have to create that energy. However you train is what's going to come out on stage. So if you train bitter, if you train annoyed, if you train negative in yourself, if you train, God, I look fat, if you train, you know, all the things that we tell ourselves, if you train that way, that's what comes out on stage. So you have to train in enjoyment. You have to put some candles on, some incense, you have to dim the lights, you have to train how you want to look on stage.
As I was dancing, I could feel my skirt kind of slipping down lower and lower on my hips. And I was worried about it, and I was actually quite preoccupied with it. And you can really see it in my dancing because I'm like glancing down at my skirt, and I'm starting to, you know, try to do moves that just let me look at my skirt. And eventually I had to just grab my skirt and kind of readjust it and hike it up again. And it's not really that big of a deal in a small show, in a restaurant show, in an intimate setting or something like that. But in a big stage show that's being filmed for a DVD, it felt like kind of a big deal. I was able to sort of keep my composure because I had practiced doing this choreography many, many times. Part of what I practiced was looking happy and relaxed. I think that a lot of times when we practice in front of the mirror, we go through the moves and we just have a dead face because we're not thinking about it. We just think that when we get on stage, then you worry about projecting and then you worry about performing it, and that's not true. And I really feel like if I hadn't really practiced that element of the dance, that I would have been very prone to falling into panic mode. And I know this is kind of controversial to say, but I think that one thing that really helped me develop my performance skills was the fact that I started dancing professionally in restaurants and at parties and stuff like that way before I was ready, way before I had the dance skill. I was the pretty girl in the costume who couldn't do anything. You know, that girl that we all complain about. That was me. And I was dancing for Arabs and Persians, and to be honest, they knew that I wasn't any good, but they tolerated me because I look cute and because I had personality as I danced. Dancing for tough crowds is really a valuable experience. I try to just focus on the feeling of loving my audience, and the more positive energy and love that you can project towards your audience, the more of that they're going to project towards you.
When you're feeling anxiety, it's the result of something called the fight or flight response. All mammals have it, and it actually is meant to be something that keeps you alive in some sort of life or death struggle. But when you're nervous about going onto the stage, even though emotionally you know that you're not gearing up for a life or death kind of struggle, your body is sort of reacting as if you are. Your stomach will get clenched up, you might lose your appetite, you'll get short, quick breaths, you might get cold hands and feet, your skin might go pale, you might have trouble remembering things. And actually one that I see backstage all the time, especially at competitions, is people having to pee every couple of minutes. your entire body chemistry changes. And obviously this puts you at a great disadvantage if your intention is to walk onto stage and be calm and have an openness for an energy exchange with the audience. So at the end of this DVD, there's a more extended relaxation exercise that you can learn, where you can learn some skills that will help you curb that fight or flight response before you dance and just in general in your life. But right now I want to show you just a couple of little exercises that you can do just in the few minutes before you go on stage. The first thing you can do is just simply stretch. And stretching is something that you should do anyways because it's a safety issue before dancing. You'll be limber, you'll have a better performance anyways. But stretching is very relaxing, and a relaxed body leads to a relaxed mind. Another thing that you can do is that you can kind of get in a position like this and just squeeze everything as tight as you can. Ball your fists up, engage your abs, squeeze your quads, pull your shoulders up, everything, even your face. Squeeze, 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 and then take a breath and then relax. And you can repeat this a couple of times. And the purpose of the exercise is to kind of remind your body the difference between being tense and being relaxed. The next one that you can do is something I call the football run, and it also looks a little bit silly, but what you do is you take sort of a shoulder width stance, you want to ball your fists up again, and you just run in place as fast as you can, like this, and you keep it up for about a minute or so. And what the purpose of that is to kind of get rid of some of that energy that's built up because of that fight or flight response. Again, that response is designed to help you run for your life if there's a predator after you, or fight for your life if you're engaged in some sort of a struggle. And both of these things are very hardcore physical activities. And so what you want to do is you want to get rid of some of that energy because that's what your body's gearing up to do. And the last thing that you can do is just to simply take a couple of really full, slow, deep breaths before you go onto stage. There's a saying in Arabic that patience takes patience, and that's so true when you're learning how to dance. I think that it takes a while to finally have the confidence and the self-control to slow down and just execute a simple move to perfection and see it the whole way through. I think that a lot of people have a tendency to over-dance, and they have this desire to kind of throw move after move after move at you, and as a result, each move in and of itself just kind of becomes muddled in this sea of other moves, and it doesn't stand out as much as it needs to. A professional knows how to showcase their big wow moments and set them up. So if, for example, you're going to just, drop into a backbend to hit an accent, you don't want to be, doing lots of little backbends and going from side to side and doing lots of similar movements before going into that movement. You want to create that juxtaposition. You want to create that contrast and set up that wow moment and get the most out of it. I think that a true professional, if you watch them on stage, they're able to just fully execute simple moves to perfection. And I think two great examples of dancers who have mastered that ability are Sandra and Nana, and we're going to see clips of them now.
I think we're often wanting to do something that would look like nobody in the world could do that. And we're busy prioritizing that when I think sometimes we should prioritize what's fun to do and what's fun to watch. So I also think sometimes we take our simpler basic moves that we learned in Belly Dance 101 and we throw them away because we think that they're old, simple, childish movements. And I like to take simple movements that I learned in Belly Dance 101 and utilize them bravely and boldly. Do a daring Egyptian walk. It doesn't have to be something sleight of hand, and it doesn't have to be something magical, and it doesn't have to confuse us. You know, perhaps if you're doing something like that, they'll forget about the fact that they should be taking notes on all of your mechanics, and they'll actually lose track of themselves for a moment. I find that Egyptian dancers, for example, have a whole different set of priorities when they're performing. They're not looking to be impressed by the mechanics of the dancer, and they are more impressed by things such as her personality and her ability to generate a happy, entertaining energy throughout the room. She's bringing in energy, and she's bringing in the feminine, and most of all, she's making people watch and enjoy and forget themselves. If you're busy in your mind thinking too many things and thinking about mechanics and these things, then you're not allowing enough room for your energy and your exchange with your audience or yourself. You want to come to a place where you're very much inside your body, where you get a sense of your center and you get a sense of all the space surrounding you. So you have an awareness not only of what's in front of you, but what's to the back and sides of you. Convincing yourself that you're not doing enough is often the source of people's panic, that they do not feel what they're doing is interesting enough, and they often feel compelled to therefore do more. Slowing down really allows a sense of grounding to take place. I like taking, say, a circular shape, so and a figure eight, and it doesn't mean necessarily that I take that circular shape only in my hips. Like I might do a turn into the hips, into the chest, but I repeat the concept of a shape, and again I might mix it with one other shape, which I can again do with different parts of my body. I try to have a repeating sentence. So in that sense, I'm sticking to a finite set of concepts. For example, take one movement, go into another movement, and then go back into the first movement. This way, I'm saving the part of my brain that would be overthinking things, and I'm sinking into movement and my body and enjoying those movements.
When you have a movement that you feel good with, that you feel comfortable with, give it some breathing room. Stop on either side of it, go into it slowly, and then let people savor the aftertaste of how good that was. I think it's a mistake of nerves and expectations to fill all of the space, and that when you really can relax and watch a dancer who doesn't feel rushed and doesn't feel pressured, that she breathes with her music and in the silence of the music chooses to do nothing, which is not standing there staring off into space waiting for the next thing to happen. It's not waiting for something to happen. It's enjoying the time that she has between the movements. So just holding your posture, reaching out with your arms, letting the breath come through your wrists. That's a great way to spend time and frame something. When I was first starting as a younger dancer, I thought that I needed to fill the time and fill the space and keep things moving and keep things interesting. I had very busy choreographies because I thought that that was impressive and that things needed to clip along. And I was told that it looks very the same. It takes an enormous amount of discipline to believe that doing less can also be interesting, and just working on believing that that's true. When you're up in front of people and they're staring at you expectantly, waiting for you to do something, and you choose to do nothing, that is a very bold choice in and of itself. You can teach people steps and footwork, and anyone can learn those things, but to dance in your body is something that you can't teach people. And actually, I feel like belly dance is the art of learning to move inside your body. And when you see someone just rolling a movement around through their hips, through their stomach, that it doesn't matter if you like belly dance or you don't like belly dance. It's such a human movement that you're drawn to it no matter what your taste is.
So as dancers, it's really important to know our music. It sounds like something that's very, very obvious to say, but I don't think it really is that obvious to everybody. You need to learn how to listen to the music in all of its depth and all of its richness. I think, for example, a lot of dancers, when there's a song and it has 4/4 timing, no matter how complex it is, they hear the 4/4 timing and they think, okay, 4 to the right, 4 to the left, 4, 4, 4. Whereas if you listen to the music in a different way, you're going to sort of be led to a totally new way of doing things. Your job as a dancer is to interpret the music for the audience. You're teaching them how to listen to the music. It's your job to show them how interesting that song is that you're dancing to. And so part of getting ready to do that is to actually listen to the music. And it sounds so obvious, but when I'm getting ready to perform to a song, I'll listen to it in my car and I'll listen to it really loud. And each time I listen to it, I'll focus on something a little bit different. So one time I might just be focusing on the beat, and then one time I might just be focusing on the melody, and one time I might just be focusing on the very, very highest sounding floaty parts, and etc. Just kind of teasing it apart instrument by instrument. And then after you've done that, you can kind of pick which are the most interesting accents to hit. And it's not always the very, very obvious stuff. Actually, a very dynamic performance is one that sort of pulls out little bits of the music that you might not have noticed had you just been listening to the song on your own. Another aspect of getting to know your music is sort of deciding if you're going to dance to the beat or the melody. You can switch off in between the two, and it's not a strict thing by any means. But in general, when I'm getting started, I sort of think of the melody as being more in the arms and in the upper body and a more sweepy, airy kind of thing. And I think of the beat being more in my feet and my legs and my hips, and kind of hit those accents with that part of the body. And it's so great to be able to sort of contrast those two sounds and those two movements in something like accordion balletic or something like that, where it's all airy, 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 and then hips for the beat. Another aspect of getting to know your music is deciding if you're going to be choreographing it or if you're going to be dancing improv. Now, when you choreograph something, there are advantages and disadvantages, just like anything else. Obviously, if you're in a troupe or something like that, a choreography is not quite as optional than if you're a soloist. But the thing about choreography is that if you are going to strictly choreograph something, you need to really practice falling in and out of that choreography. You need to practice messing up your choreography and recovering from it, because sometimes when we mess up our choreography and we have trouble getting back into the choreography, it can look very disruptive in the flow of your dance. But I would recommend having sort of a skeleton sort of choreography where you know there are certain parts where you maybe wanted to try to do certain things if your weight is right and if you're in the right spot, and going in with sort of a skeleton plan, but then being open enough to have it change and letting yourself be swept away with the moment and with the emotion of the performance. And so we're going to watch a clip now of Zahia, and she'll be talking about her improv style. And then we'll see 2 more clips of dancers talking about their process of getting ready to dance to a song and their process of getting to know the music and preparing to perform.
The music tells you what to do. And if you know your music well enough, you don't even have to think about what you're doing because the music tells you what to do. If there's a floaty part, then that usually doesn't mean you're going to be grounded and doing really strong hip work. You're going to be doing more floaty work. If it's very heavy, got some deep drumming, then you're probably going to want to be a bit more grounded and do your interesting hip work. I really think using music that moves you and makes you feel good and you enjoy listening to is absolute key in how your performance is going to be. I mean, you have to love not only dancing, but you have to love the music you're dancing to. Once I decided on a piece of music that I'm going to dance to, especially if it's going to be put on film forever, I listen to it over and over and over again, but I don't listen to it the same way each time. First, I'll just listen to it just as an entire piece of music, and then I'll break it down, and then I'll just listen to the drumming. And if a particular piece of music has interesting drum accents, then I'll make sure to catch those accents. Or if it has interesting violin accents, I try to always catch those. But you just break down the piece of music and you listen to all the different elements, because it's so interesting when you watch a dancer and you don't know the piece of music they're dancing to, but they hit these little tiny accents that are kind of buried sometimes in the music. I also find that if I go through with using the music that I don't know that well, my dancing suffers. I don't think I perform as well. It's one of those things, as dancers, you have to be able to interpret your music, because that's part of the thrill of watching a belly dancer. It's not the fact that she can shimmy, it's that she's shimmying to a drum that sounds like she should be shimmying to it. I don't use choreography. I never have. I'm more of I'm an improv dancer. So I videotape myself over and over and over again dancing improv to this particular piece of music. And the more I dance to it, the more choreographed it became in a loose sense. It was not, I didn't write anything down. I just watched it and thought, hey, I like what I did there. But it was never exactly the same every time. Well, one of the reasons I don't choreograph is because it takes me out of the moment of the music. I like to not have to think about what I'm doing, but just move to the music.
When I'm getting ready for a gig, I really focus solely on the music and, you know, how the music is making me feel. And I pulled apart instrument by instrument. I pulled apart, you know, almost as a composer I look at it like, I'm not a musician, but I look at it as a musician perhaps would look at the music. Not as a dancer, not like, I never look at a music as like, okay, how hot can I look? Like, how this can I mean, that, I feel like that's what the costume's for, and that's what all my dance training's for. But when I get ready to do a piece, I pretty much solely focus on the music, and that prepares me when I'm on stage to focus on the music. You have to basically have this love affair with the music. And if you don't have that, then the audience is not going to want to see you, because they don't want to just see you, a pretty girl in a costume. They want to see you making love to the music. They want to see you being the music, you know, having that affair, and that's what your job is as a performer.
When I choreograph an intro, I spend probably 20 times more choreographing the walking entrance than the entire rest of the song. It is so hard for me to just put one foot in front of the other and walk across a stage. There's something that I feel is inherently not interesting, and yet that's the point of your performance that has to be the most engaging, is when you walk out. So I practice it forwards and backwards and to the right and to the left and walking sideways and turning circles. And ultimately, I usually end up with the first thing I did, but after exploring every possible option, I feel a little bit more confident about it. I chose Hosam Ramzi's Fada because the first time I heard it, it has such a forward-moving momentum to it. The instrumentation is so full, and it really just makes me think of a magic carpet sweeping across the desert. It just moves always forward. So I think that's a great intro to help get your energy up to get out on that stage, because I really need that kind of help. I have a tendency to slink out, and that's not what you're looking for when you want to command the stage immediately. So also, I think it's important to choose a good piece of music that will help you with your choreography. This song has changes in rhythm, changes in mood. It goes from a very forward momentum to a very slowed down sensual. And the more you can exaggerate those changes in the music, I think the more interesting your performance will ultimately be. It helps give you more time as a soloist if you can be 5 dancers instead of 1 dancer and do 5 different things instead of the same thing through the whole dance. I choreographed this song specifically for the DVD, and it isn't the choreography that I would use for a nightclub or an improvised performance at a party. I tried to make it as varied as I can, because you can rewind a DVD and watch something over if you'd like to see it. So I felt like I didn't have as much of a need to repeat things as I do for a live audience. One of the ways I think that you can add a sense of sensuality, even in a fast choreography, if you're feeling a little bit rushed, is by getting your hips out from underneath your rib cage and not keeping everything so vertical. I also like to sweep down from the side and down, or just come straight down. And any transition where you have an extra few seconds, I try to put a little level change in there just to make it a little more interesting. Knowing the music, I don't really see how you can do something wrong as long as you catch it. I know there are different levels of interpretation, whether the drum is going up or the drum is coming down. You want your hip to reflect that, but there's so much freedom of where you can catch an accent. You can catch it in the head, in the chin, in the chest, in the hips, with the feet, with the arms, so that if you really know your music, it's hard to make a real mistake.
think it's really easy to feel uninspired by your music, or uninspired by the venue, or uninspired by your audience. And in those circumstances, it can be really easy to just phone in your performance. I think a lot of times we sort of feel like, okay, I've got my costume on, I've got my makeup on, I'm on stage, I'm belly dancing, you know, what? But if you're bored and you're not really captivated by your own performance, how can you expect the audience to be? And so one strategy for keeping yourself interested in your performance is to tell yourself a little story about each song or each segment of a song or whatever. And so, for example, there's one part of a song that I dance to, and I think there's a girl and she has a secret, and it's that she's in love. And just telling myself that little bit of a story adds just extra texture and extra flavor to the dance that I'm doing. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of what people would say after seeing Bill Clinton speak to a crowd. They would say, you know, I really felt like he was speaking just to me. He was able to make sort of an individual connection with everybody in the audience. And that's what you want to do as a dancer. Don't make the mistake of being a needy dancer and really, you know, zeroing in on people, especially in small venues, and freaking them out. It's a different thing between forming a connection with the audience and being a needy dancer. When you're forming a connection with the audience, you're doing something and you're inviting them in to experience it with you. You're not saying, okay, clap, ta-da, 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 like me, like me. You're just doing your thing, and you're drawing them in naturally with your energy. And you can sort of show the audience what it is they're supposed to see and teach them how they're supposed to react to your performance. So, for example, if you're looking down at your hip, or if you're looking up at your hand or something like that, you're showing the audience what to look at. And Aziza always says, be amazed with what you're doing. Because if you're just standing there shimmying like, oh yeah, I've shimmied a million times, you know, here, that's gonna give a very different feeling than if you're doing your shimmy and saying, wow, I'm shimmying. You know, you don't want to be too corny about it, but you want to be captivated with what you're doing. And so we're going to watch a few clips, one of Shoshana and one of Zari, and they're talking about their focus and their energy projection while they're on stage.
Well, one thing you can do if you're not really sure what to focus on until you get your bearings is you can focus on yourself. So sometimes, particularly on a large stage where you're not able to see the audience, if you're starting to feel a little bit scattered, you can always pick a piece of your costume to focus on. If you're interested in something, then other people become interested in it, and it makes them want to pay attention, and it makes them want to know what's going on inside your head. With this song, it's basically about how she's waiting for someone and he never came, and she's tormented, and it's sort of about that obsession that you have when you're waiting for someone, and it's that kind of desperate love, and your mind keeps going back to the same thing over and over again. And you know, I think we've all been there. It's sometimes I'm looking very directly at one thing, and sometimes I'm looking at everything and not letting my eyes rest on anything, and that's sort of the mood of the song. You can control the audience a lot by how you are moving your head, what you're pointing your face at, what you're saying with your eyes. For a simple movement to look invested, like if you're lifting your arm up, you can lift it straight up, and you can think about the end of your arm, which is your wrist or your hand or whatever, coming up to the top of your head. And I think a lot of times when people do something simple like raising up their arm, what they're really doing is they're picking up their wrist and placing it in the air above their head. I think that a way to make that feel a little bit more inhabited is that you need to also consider the back of your body. So if you're picking up your arm, it may be true that your audience is only seeing the front of your arm, but you have to be using your whole arm, including the top of your arm, the bottom of your arm, the back of your arm. I feel like it's kind of more paying attention to the entire movement and not just to the angular points of your skeleton. You can also look at where your hand is going to be as you bring it up. So that sort of puts the focus on a particular space. And when your hand comes up to meet the same place that your eye is looking, then it seems like a stronger connection. It's not just the physical space that you're taking up, but the amount of space that you're filling with your energy. So part of your focus can be going out, but you can also bring focus in. And I think it's interesting if you focus on something that's a certain distance away and then focus beyond that, and then you can bring it back in internally. And I think that's a lot more dynamic than if you're always projecting to the back row. And projecting to the back row is sort of a one-size-fits-all approach to stage dynamics, and it definitely works. But I think it loses its impact when you do it the whole time in belly dance, because belly dance, especially in the slower movements, has more of an internal quality, so you can play with that a little bit as you're doing your dance. As people usually look where you're looking, you can basically direct people a lot. So if you're looking at something, the audience assumes that there's a reason for you to be looking there, and they're going to look there too. You can exploit that by really exaggerating your head focus. So when you look down to the floor, the audience's attention is going to be drawn downward. If a dancer is looking down and pointing down and has her leg extended and the toe is pointed, people aren't going to be looking up over your left shoulder. They're going to be looking down because that's where everything is oriented. And so by bending forward slightly or bending backwards slightly or looking in profile, or all of these things can give more of a multi-layered quality.
So when I'm performing and dancing, I try to focus on my dancing being a visual representation of the music and feeling as though I'm painting the music with my body through space as I'm dancing. In this piece, I really felt that at the beginning of the song, it had a very quiet, emotional beginning, and then it develops into a much more exuberant, bright feeling. So at the beginning of this piece, I tried to keep my energy and focus a little bit more internal to draw the audience into my world. And then as the music became more exuberant, I tried to develop my focus to be more external and reflect that energy back and forth between the audience and myself. One aspect that I love in a live performance is when there's a musical band available to dance to, so that you can have the energy exchange between the dancer, the musicians, and the audience, which I think amplifies the performance experience and makes an energy that really sizzles and has a feeling of electricity that you can generate. When you have CD to dance to. You don't quite have that same energy that you can create with a live band, but I try to imagine that I have that band behind me all the time so that I can at least give the audience as full of an experience as possible. As I dance, I try to imagine that I'm setting out on kind of an adventure to unlock the emotional depths of the music and to take the audience along with me on the ride. When I consider my energy and my focus as I'm dancing, I try to consider where I'm drawing the audience's eye. Here I'm looking up, they're obviously going to be following me. I'm creating a line of energy that they can follow, trying to pull them through the space with me, trying to use a lot of the space. When I dance, I really try to fill up that space that I have available to me, whether it's a very small space or whether it's a large theater stage. One thing you can also accomplish through being very conscious of your focus as you're dancing is to problem solve a little bit. I'm definitely an improvisational dancer, and even if I try to plan things out ahead of time, they don't usually go as planned, or there's some kind of a costume difficulty, or your veil gets caught somewhere or lands on your head, or something happens that you'd like to draw the audience's attention away from. And if you're focusing on your side of your body where there isn't some costume malfunction happening, you can really direct the audience's attention where you'd like it to be and diminish their paying attention to the problem that might be happening. And try to be very aware of what my body is doing through space and trying to make everything dynamic, not keeping everything too fast, not keeping everything too medium or too slow in pace, trying to really pay attention to the size of my movements, the shape I'm making in space, the line design I'm taking on the floor around the stage. Just in general, trying to keep everything flowing, everything dynamic, so that it doesn't become boring to the audience. I feel like if I'm keeping a very medium tempo, I'm staying in one location on stage, I'm just keeping that nice downbeat of the music, I'm not really creating a very captivating, interesting performance for my audience. And so I try to really reach out beyond that and make some things very slow, make some things much faster, change the direction I'm facing with my movement, where I'm traveling, and try to fill up that space around me as much as I can. And that not only comes from traveling around the space, but really kind of turning up the volume on your stage presence. Like when you're off stage, you have maybe your regular everyday personality, but when you go on stage, there should be a light that turns on or a volume that turns up, so that as you enter the stage, or just a second before you enter stage, you have this beaming energy coming out of your body that you can wield as you see necessary during your performance with the music that you have to dance with. I also try and envision that music as something like a pool of water, the music being a pool of deep water that you're immersed in, so that you have to move through it to be able to dance, and you have to work your way through every molecule of the music around you to be able to move it all, so that your audience really gets sucked into your expression of the music.
This next exercise is a relaxation exercise, and it's designed to help you reduce that anxiety response. So it incorporates a variation of different techniques, a breathing technique, and then we'll do something called progressive relaxation, and then we'll do some visualization. And there's a whole field of study called sports psychology that's especially dedicated to helping you get your mind ready to execute physical activities. And as dancers, we've all drilled the moves, we can do them, but it's a matter of sort of unlocking something in our mind to allow us to really execute those moves with conviction and with emotion. And so this exercise is about 11 minutes long, and what you need to do is just lay down somewhere quiet, and you want to be nice and comfortable. And what's going to happen is the screen is actually going to go to black. You're going to close your eyes, and you'll hear my voice, and I'll guide you through the exercise.
First thing I want you to do is just lay down on the ground, lay down on your back, lay somewhere comfortably, and close your eyes.
I
want you to just breathe normally, but I want you to notice if your stomach is rising and falling as you're taking your breath, or if the breath is mainly causing the chest to rise and fall. When you're breathing deeply, you're breathing all the way through down to the bottom lobes of the lungs, and your stomach should expand as you take your breath. So when you're taking your breath, it's like filling up a glass of water. So first, the bottom lobes of your lungs are going to expand, and so therefore your stomach is going to expand. And then the air continues to fill up into the upper lobes of your lungs, and then your chest expands. And you're gonna go back the opposite way as you exhale, like you're pouring water out of a glass. So as you exhale, first, the air comes out of the upper lobes of your lungs, so your chest comes down, and then your stomach comes down. So we're gonna take a moment to just be quiet and be in our bodies and focus simply on our breath. When we're feeling stressed out, a lot of times your breath will be kind of shallow and quick. And one of the easiest things that you can do, and the most immediate things that you can do to bring relaxation into your body, is to just think about belly breathing. You want to take a deep breath in, maybe count to 5, and exhale and count to 5. And you can feel, you should get a little oxygen rush throughout your body. Now, as you continue to breathe through your belly, I'm going to take you through a series of exercises that are going to involve tensing and relaxing different parts of your body. The point of this is to teach your body the difference between tension and relaxation. A relaxed body is going to lead to a relaxed mind. Anyone who's ever had a massage will tell you that is true. So the first thing you're going to do is pretend that you have a lemon in each of your hands, and you're going to squeeze your hands. You're trying to squeeze all of the juice out of those lemons. The tightness in your hands then spreads to your arms, and you're squeezing and you're engaging your fingers and your forearm and your whole arm muscle, and you're putting so much energy into it that your muscles might be shaking a little bit from all of the energy that you're putting into it. And now you're going to take a deep breath, and as you exhale, the lemon is going to fall from your hand. Your whole arm is going to relax, and you're going to notice how heavy your hand and your arm are against the ground. You have no energy in your arms whatsoever. They're completely relaxed. And as a matter of fact, they're so heavy they could even leave indentations on the floor while you're laying. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to tense your feet. I want you to pretend like you're standing in a mud puddle, and what you want to do is you want to squish your toes down deep into the mud and try to get your feet down to the bottom of the mud puddle. You'll probably need your legs to help you push down. Spread your toes apart, feel the mud squish between your toes. And now you're going to step out of the mud puddle, and you're going to relax your legs. Now you're going to do it again, and you're going to do it a little bit harder. Push your legs down into that mud puddle, and you're going to tense your whole leg, engaging all of the muscles, squeezing as hard as you can. And when you take a breath and you exhale, you're going to relax your body, relax your legs, relax your feet, and you're just going to focus on your breathing. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna focus on the stomach. And just pretend like you're laying there and a little elephant or something is walking by and he's going to step on your stomach. And so what you need to do is you need to protect yourself. And so you're engaging your stomach, you're engaging your lower back, your glutes, you're bracing for all that weight to be put on your stomach. And you're gonna squeeze, squeeze, squeeze as tight as you can. Keep squeezing, and you're gonna take a breath, and as you relax, it's all gonna relax with you. Take a couple deep breaths. Remember your belly breathing. And now the last thing that we're gonna do is shoulders and face and neck. So what you're going to do is you're going to shrug your shoulders up, pull them up towards your ears. You're going to tense the back of your neck. You're going to tense your mouth. You're going to squeeze your eyes shut. You're putting as much energy into squeezing and tensing as you can. Squeeze, 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 and take a deep breath and relax everything. And you should be totally relaxed and totally heavy. There should be nothing tensing anywhere in your body. And as you take a couple of deep breaths, you're going to feel your back against the ground. You're going to feel connected to the ground. You're going to feel the air touching your face, touching your arms, and you're just being in your body and focusing on your breath. And in this relaxed state, I want you to think that you are on a stage. And I want you to imagine going out onto the stage and doing something very simple, but very beautiful. Imagine the audience watching you and being moved by you and projecting positive, wonderful energy towards you. And all the while you're relaxed and you're confident. And you know that no matter what you're about to do, it's going to be okay. Now imagine your music suddenly changing, and your music is changing and it's something that you don't recognize, and you're on stage, and instead of feeling panic, take a big deep belly breath and imagine that you're listening to that music and your body starts to move with that music, and feel the confidence in your dance ability and your musical interpretation, and feel that wonderful response from the audience as they see your improvisational skills. And now picture at the end of your performance, you're standing up there on the stage and you feel such love and gratitude towards your audience. You don't want this moment to end. You are so happy to be on stage. You're so relaxed. You're so confident and you're so beautiful. And you are such a beautiful dancer. And hold on to this feeling. You can pull this feeling out of you at any time. You can pull it out of you in real life as you actually are on stage. Now you're going to go ahead and open your eyes and take a deep breath. You're going to focus on being back in the room, being back in reality, being back in your body. But the whole time you're going to hold on to that feeling of relaxation. And now would be a great time to just take 5 minutes, if you have it, and put on some music and practice your dance.
All right, for this next exercise, you're going to need a chair. And what we're going to do is we're going to sit in the chair and we're going to put on some music and we're going to do our whole dance while sitting in the chair. So you're not going to be moving your legs or your feet or your hips. The whole dance is going to be in the upper body. And so the benefits of this are threefold. Number one, it's going to help you really put the focus in your upper body. I think as belly dancers, we get really preoccupied with what's going on in our hips and sometimes sort of neglect our posture and our upper body and neglect to do different and interesting things from the waist up. And the next benefit of this exercise is that it kind of causes you to listen to your music in a slightly different way. I think if you take yourself outside of your comfort zone, then you're going to experience the music a little bit differently. And that's what we're trying to do here. The third benefit of this exercise is that it helps enhance creativity. I think when you sort of limit yourself, it causes you to be much more creative in the outlets that you do have for expression, and sometimes something really interesting will come out. So I'm going to just demonstrate, but again, this exercise is meant for you to do as part of your practice routine, and so doing it along with me will not give you the benefits, but I will demonstrate so you can sort of see what it is. So let's do it. So I've gotten a lot of emails from people requesting an improv exercise, and it really got me thinking about what is improv. And I think that improv is a combination of confidence and knowing your music. And so this next exercise is meant to kind of simulate a little bit of an anxious situation. And what we're going to do is I'm going to play a clip of music for you. It'll be a clip between 10 and 20 seconds long. And the first time you hear it, you're just going to listen. And then the next 4 times it plays through, you're going to just sort of do an improv dance to that clip of music. Now, the catch is that you aren't going to have time between the clips to think about it, and you're not allowed to do the same thing twice. So it has to be a totally different exercise each of the 4 times that you go through it. So I'll demonstrate, but when it's time for you to do it, the screen will go black because, of course, following me doing improv is not going to help you increase your improv skills. And I think the thing to keep in mind during this exercise is that you don't need to be so inhibited. You don't need to just know where a move is going to end up. If you're going to go ahead and go into a move, you don't have to know exactly where it's taking you. For example, if I'm about to fall, I can either just go with it, or if I'm feeling very sort of rigid and stuck in my idea of what I'm going to do and my plan isn't to go that way, and I'm starting to lose my balance, I'll kind of, do one of these and try to catch myself, which is much more of a noticeable mistake than just kind of, falling to the side. And so I want you to really think about being uninhibited and letting yourself just do whatever comes out. If you're just in your living room and no one's watching you, you really have nothing to be afraid of. It doesn't matter if you look silly, and you know what? You might, and who cares? That's part of growing. And I think that as long as you keep moving, It doesn't matter. You don't want to stop moving. You want to just go ahead and keep moving and press on and just see what comes out. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the exercise. So the first time, we're just going to listen to the clip. And then we're going to go ahead and play it 4 times through. And I'm just going to do a different thing every time we go. So here we go. This next exercise is designed to help you improve your sense of focus. You're going to pretend like there's a feather floating all around your body, and it's sort of dancing with you. And sometimes you're reaching up and trying to grab the feather, and sometimes you're just watching it swirl around. But you definitely want to have a distinct point of focus. You're imagining there is a feather floating around you. And so you're really going to spend the next exercise exaggerating this, this idea. And again, I'll demonstrate the exercise for you, but it's something that's meant for you to do when you're not watching the DVD, to put on some music and really play around with it. So let's go.
Thank you for watching the video. Please like the video, share and subscribe the channel. Thank you.